What's going on, everybody? It's your host, the Sports Moose, coming at you, episode number 10 of the Viper's Nest podcast. What a weekend of XFL action, and what a weekend for our Tampa Bay Vipers. Finally getting off the schneid with a big victory against the DC Defenders. Got a great show for you tonight. Go around the XFL in the slowest 8 minutes for the XFL. Of course, a full Vipers Week 4 recap. We've got good, bad, and ugly. And, of course, hot takes. A couple good spicy hot takes for you. And our first ever, the Sports Heap Viper's Nest Power Rankings. Now that we have 4 weeks under our belt, felt pretty comfortable in our power rankings and providing those for you guys. Both on YouTube and out there in podcast world. As we always do, getting ready for our episode. Gotta hit that intro. Hope you're having a great Tuesday night out there. It's the Sports Moose with the Sports Heap on episode 10 of the Viper's Nest. Got a new look for you if you're watching on YouTube. Hope you like what you see. Kind of reformatted the graphics a little bit, and a little bit of a snakeskin background on our topics bar that's now on the side to your right. Got a little bit of scrolling under. We haven't really added the full scrolling. We're hoping to sell either ads or messages from our fans to other fans, or some updates and stats, kind of how we do for the Bucking Hangover. Put some Viper stats down there. Probably for the next episode, we'll have that ready. But just wanted to preview the new layout, and of course we got a scrolling action up top. Probably for our recap shows, we'll have the scores there, maybe some light XFL news, and then episode 11, kind of the week 5 preview, will definitely have spreads and picks on there as well, right below me in the scrolling text. So hope you like the new format. Kind of excited for whenever Emrod returns. He promises he'll be back for week 5 action, or week 5 recap. He's finishing up moving a little bit of a fixer-upper project at his house, so hopefully he'll be back with us by next week. But that's fine. We'll hold it down. We've been holding it down steady so far, right? Hope you've been enjoying my my coverage of the Vipers, and I know can't wait to have Emrod's takes when he gets back. So, of course, we got our topics right there to the right now. And as we always do, before we get going, don't forget, hopefully you're watching this live on YouTube, or at least pre-recorded show. Get to enjoy the nice graphics and the information we get to throw on the screen. But if not, of course, always feel free to listen to us on your favorite podcasting platform. You can see all those listed down below: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. So make sure you're searching for the Sports Heap on YouTube to get to our channel, and then search for the specific shows on your podcasting platform to find us. All right, finally ready to go here. Wonder if I should trademark the slowest 8 minutes in football, XFL football. I don't know if I can use XFL legally, but the slowest 8 minutes, you know what that means. It's montage music time as well. Got the beats going. Let's get started with the LA Wildcats going over to New York, playing on a little bit of a snow flurry. Snow flurries during the game, facing the New York Guardians in a pretty empty MetLife field. I mean, almost at the end of the Saturday games, actually, Oliver Luck tweeted, or at least public comment, that all venues are going to be New York venues got to be one of them. I guess they wanted the splash of playing in Jersey inside of a big stadium, but man, it's just, I can't imagine the numbers behind that are any good, and especially towards the end of the year with New York not being great. Of course, I'd expect attendance to come down into the 7,000-8,000s by the end of the year if they're not in playoff contention. So hopefully they're moving to Red Bull Stadium. I think that'd be a great place for them to end up. Smaller stadium, I think it would definitely look better on TV. Never been up in that area, so I don't know if it's easier to get to Red Bull Stadium or not versus anywhere else, or versus getting to MetLife Stadium. So hopefully that ends up being a positive for the Guardians long term. But back to the game. This was a huge surprise. So we got some sound effects here. The Moose's Monster Teaser done immediately. This is the second week in a row it's happened. The Moose's Monster Teaser, first game of the week, knocks it out. Big surprise here. Guardians coming out on top, 17-14 behind. Pretty great play from Luis Perez. We've talked about it over the last few weeks that maybe it's time to give Marquise Williams or Luis Perez a chance. Perez never really given a sniff until it was his time, being listed third on the depth charts from the beginning. Marquise Williams, of course, getting in there and not capitalizing on his opportunity. And lo and behold, it became the Luis Perez show, and he did not disappoint. He played well last week. That really sparked the Guardians' offense a lot more than Williams and McGloin had been able to do. Don't think it hurt that he had a pretty good running game supporting him, over 120 yards combined by all backs. Victor and Cook, of course, had been leading the way most of the season. They struggled last week, I think, in the run, but they were back at it. Double barrel action with two great running backs in New York. Perez, almost 69% completion, 18 for 26 for $150. So wasn't burning down the world or anything, but took what LA gave him, and that's all they needed. Because as we've talked about from week one, and we saw it against the Vipers, and even in small degrees against some of the tough losses New York has had, the New York defense is incredible. 3 sacks once again, multiple tackles for loss, and 2 sacks by the big guy Owens. I think is leading Terrell Owens is leading the league in sacks, I want to say. No, he has 2. I think one of the other New York guys has 3. So again, it's been an absolute just a feeding frenzy on the front 7 for New York. Couple tackles for loss, but really QB hits is what you're looking at. They had 8 QB hits inclusive of the 3 sacks, so lots of pressure being put on Josh Johnson, who for the first time this season, game 3 for him, didn't look great, looked rattled. LA, we talked about it in the preview last episode. One of the keys of the game had to be getting their running game back on track. Didn't happen. I think they combined for 40 yards rushing. Yeah, 40 yards total rushing to New York's 122, putting a lot of pressure on Josh Johnson, and had New York defense really clamp down. 2 for 12 for the Wildcats on third down, season low for them. Guardians were actually there. Remember, their average was 13%. They got it up to almost 40% this game, 5 for 13 for the Guardians on third down. First downs was pretty even, 19-17. Both teams moving the ball decently well. Of course, some of that was LA coming back in the fourth quarter. So Josh Johnson getting a lion's share of some of his passing yards there. 325 yards for Josh Johnson. Actually, that was a sneaky. I didn't realize it was that much. Kind of a sneaky game for him. 63% completion, but did have a key interception. I think the interception really shifted the balance of that game. It was third quarter. I mean, the game was still close at that point, and that was just a badly timed interception. It was brutal. Smallwood having a good game, on offense. They were missing Spruce, so I think they definitely felt that. And really the big story has been Trey McBride. Another phenomenal game, up to 236 so far in the season, receiving yards. 127 again, another 100-yard performance for him. I believe he was over 100 yards last game too. Again, a couple of bombs that Josh Johnson was able to throw. So, I mean, this is just kind of not really a sloppy game. It was kind of a well play. I was happy to see New York play well. They just haven't been playing well the last few weeks. You got the Matt McGloin negativity, and hopefully we've seen the last of that. Because Luis Perez just really brought a different energy to the team, and the team really rallied around him. It was good to see Joe Horn get back in on the action, and Powell, who we've been touting most of the year as a tight end action for him in the tight end slot for New York, doing really well. Mikhail McKay, disappointing game. I think 2 drops that I remember, at least one really, really bad drop. I mean, I think it was for a key third down for conversion, and thankfully didn't swing the game, but it was pretty critical at the time. Only 2 receptions, 12 yards. He's had a rough go at it lately as well. So kind of looking at, I think, total passing yards, 305 when you take the sacks away, to 128. So again, Luis Perez wasn't asked to win the game, but he was certainly asked not to lose the game. And that's really what happened. Guardians able to pull it away at the end with a McCrane field goal, 47-yarder to put him in the lead for good. And kind of as an aside, I'm loving the 2-minute warning rules. I think those are great. You still have the middle of the field as an option despite not having to take a timeout. Love it. Love that you get 5 seconds to reset and get everyone to the line. No, gasping for breath. And I know that's part of the NFL that some of us like, right? It's desperation time. You got to give it your all, 110%. All those other fun sayings that we love. But I'm just really liking it. I'm liking the 2-minute drill, and we got to see it here come into play. So that was your Guardians Wildcats game, first game of the weekend. Guardians on top, 17-14. Second game, I think we expected this to be a blowout, and it certainly was the biggest spread of the year so far. I think Battlehawks were favored by 11.5 at one point, and it kind of ended up being a closer game. And the only reason for that was finally Jim Zorn took him to game 4, but seems like he's ready to move on from Brandon Silvers, who we've been talking about the last few weeks, just not playing well enough to win games. I mean, quarterback play has been an issue, and we talked about it in weeks 1 and 2. But quarterbacks started to play a little bit better on other teams. Case in point, Taylor Cornelius, for example. Just Brandon Silvers never took that step, right? What was his watermark for yards in a game? I mean, probably not against the Vipers, despite the win. The Vipers' pass defense really clamped him down. It was the short fields that the Vipers gave him with turnovers. Still can't believe we lost to the Guardians and the Vipers, by the way. Then the Dragons, by the way. It's unbelievable. Total yards, Battlehawks pretty much in control of this game. I think the sub of BJ Daniels in the second half really sparked some life to the Dragons. They scored 2 touchdowns. Basically all their scoring other than a opening half field goal came in the second half, and their defense clamped down a little bit. They gave up, what was the score going into halftime? I think the score going into halftime was 17-3, so 2 touchdowns given up by the Dragons defense, which we thought was going to be pretty solid and give them a chance to win the game. But yeah, I mean, it was great to see BJ Daniels come in there, lead a drive, and get them as close as 20-16. But unfortunately just couldn't hold them. Battlehawks drove. I mean, it was I think in week 4 we saw some pretty epic drives. I think we saw many of those in the Vipers game, but there were some pretty long drives here. This was Dragons had an 82-yard drive, and right after that, they went 82 yards in almost only 3 minutes. But right after that, you had the Battlehawks go down the field 77 yards, and oh wow, there was a 96-yard drive also to open out the game. I forgot about that. I did watch that, and that was again just the Battlehawks getting pinned deep on a punt. A little bit of an interesting decision by the return man. They get pinned deep. I think there might have been a penalty involved as well to push him half distance to the goal. And yeah, they drove 96 yards in under 5 minutes. So I'm liking high octane football. It's almost like a kind of a good mix of arena and NFL, right? It's like the high octane NFL. You're getting these long drives. It reminds me of the college game. It's like watching a Big 12 game sometimes. Driving down the field, defense optional. But looking at our usual leaders, Jordan Tamu didn't have to do much. Really, in the driver's seat, played an efficient game. 260, quiet 264. And again, 20-27. That's so efficient. 75% completion. You just can't. You can't beat that. He's right up there with PJ Walker, and I would say PJ Walker's like the little shaky the last 2 weeks. I mean, not bad or anything. I'm not saying that he's not the front runner for MVP along with Cam Phillips, but Jordan Tamu has had a great year, and I'm really curious to see how he does against a good defense. He's going to be facing, I think they played the Roughnecks, right? Week 1, was that the matchup? No, it was Renegades. Yeah, they had that Roughnecks game, right? Week 2. And really going against a top-tier defense there. Curious to see how they're going to do against the Vipers. Vipers' defense is pretty solid. So we'll see how they match up in a few weeks. That I'll hopefully be in attendance for that home game in Raymond James Stadium, Battlehawks and Vipers. This was really interesting, though. The 2 quarterbacks were the leading rushers in the game here. I thought that was really interesting when the game came to a conclusion on Saturday. B.J. Daniels had 84 yards rushing to lead the way. They had been using Farrell, Gardner, and Williams, kind of that three-headed monster that wasn't really doing much. And Brandon Silvers, again, going 4 for 10. 40-yard completion, only 27 yards passing. And Jordan Tamu led the way. Matt Jones kind of having a quiet, controlled game. 15 attempts for 20 yards. Christy Michael had a couple good, tore up a couple good runs, 12 for 27. But Jordan Tamu, 16 attempts, 63 yards. So hair under 4.0 average per rush attempt for Jordan Tamu. A lot of the action coming in the air. Pearson L, I think, has been kind of a sleeper wide receiver, as well as Mumphrey for the Battlehawks. How many yards does Pearson L have? Let's take a look. He's at 2 of 10. He's over 2, averaging a hair over 50 a game. So he's been really one of their biggest threats in the offense. Mumphrey's I think been a little bit quiet. He had a big game, total receptions of 6. So now you're looking at 51 yards. So he's a hair over 100. So we'll see what goes on here with the Dragons again. When Keenan Reynolds and Austin Prohl are 4 yards and 1 yard receiving, respectively, that's not good. That is really, really not good. 57 yards to Alonzo Moore, actually. A little bit of a coming out party for him. Really, that's the only offense Seattle had. They looked dreadful until B.J. Daniels came in, gave them that dual threat. Final, 23-16, Battlehawks in control. And now it's time for the Texas Throwdown. The Houston Roughnecks taking a quick jaunt up to Dallas, or Fort Worth, or Arlington, I guess, technically, to play the Dallas Renegades at home. Finally, a second home game for the Dallas Renegades. And they did not disappoint. Actually, a bigger crowd for this second game than the first game. So that's pretty awesome to see attendance actually go up in a follow-up game. This game was really close, and I think the Renegades were an unfortunate injury away from potentially pulling this off. Where's the big news? Landry Jones going down with what initially seemed to be a pretty significant knee injury. Thankfully, it's been downgraded. Only should be out 2 weeks, so hopefully we'll see Landry Jones return for Week 7, potentially for a playoff push for the Dallas Renegades. Again, pretty close game. I think Dallas's defense did great to limit P.J. Walker's usual owning of the game, right? Yards of offense were pretty even, 307 to 292, and holding the Roughnecks under 50% third down, which I think they've been among the leaders in the league. And passing, really only 233 for P.J. Walker, or 239. He lost 6 for a sack. You're a little bit over 60%, 29 for 41. Then Landry Jones going 25 for 38. So actually a little bit of kind of outperforming him in terms of efficiency and completion rating. Able to throw a 33-yard bomb. The big minus, of course, Landry Jones, a little bit of an implosion. 3 interceptions. And yeah, that's how they ended drives in the first quarter. 3 picks, which thankfully only led to 6 points off of those 3 interceptions. So Dallas defense clamping down and keeping it a game. And still a couple, they had another fumble, 2 fumbles. So 5 total turnovers for the Renegades. That's not going to win you too many games there. Only 1 turnover for the Roughnecks. I think PJ threw an interception. He did. On the ground, again, pretty even, 74 to 88 in favor of the Renegades. Leading rusher, Artis Payne had a little bit of a quiet day. It was actually, is it Lance Dunbar, right? Is he playing now? Yeah, Lance Dunbar, North Texas star. So right there in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Lance Dunbar, leading rusher for the Renegades on the day, 9 for 48. And then, of course, Butler leading the way for the Roughnecks with 39 yards. Walker getting 17 on his own. Nick Hawley leading the day with receptions and with yards, almost 100-yard day for him. You kind of expected a slower day for Cam Phillips with all the attention going his way. 3 targets, only 1 reception for 9 yards. So gave Coates and Mobley even some chances to make an impact. Really, it was Holly and Khalil Lewis with the receptions and most of the offensive action for the Roughnecks. Roughnecks defense actually held to only 1 sack, so kudos to the offensive line for Dallas. Really were able to control damage done on the front line. Only 1 sack for Dallas as well, and 6 quarterback hits for the Houston defense. That's lower than what they usually get. Of course, the big story is the 3 picks generated and 2 and an additional fumble, 2 fumbles that were recovered by the Houston defense or special teams. And lots of pass deflected too. We were at pass defense. I think they were double digits. Looked like 10 or 11 total pass defense passes defended. So once again, great effort by the Houston defense. Final on this one, 27-20. Houston takes round 1 of the Texas Throwdown. So finally now moving, told you that's a slow 8 minutes. Finally moving down to Vipers, the full week 4 recap. You see the interception board behind me only went up by 1. But we want to get, finally, we got to have a clean game, guys. No interceptions, no turnovers. But I'll take it. We're at a pace for 32 or something like that in a 16-game season. Glad we've got it down to 7, 4 games in. Down to 7 interceptions in 4 games. So We're down under 2 a game. That's good. Good work by the offensive play calling and Taylor Cornelius to only throw 1 interception. But this was a big game. I mean, the way the Vipers performed in weeks 1 and week 2, and potentially against 2 of the worst teams in the league now, after kind of having some data points and some comparison, even though the Guardians looked like a different team this week. It's still hard to believe that the Vipers have lost the way they played this game against defenders, that they lost against the Guardians and lost against the Dragons, and just that there was a true possibility that they could have ended up 0-4. I mean, this was probably as close to a must-win game that you can have this early in the season. I mean, I think going down 0-4, going down to 0-4 in a 10-game season, probably not going to get you into the semifinals. So, be quite literally saving the season here in Game 4, taking a big 25-0 statement victory over the DC Defenders, who have now dropped 2 in a row, and they've looked really bad doing it after coming out flying Game 1 and Game 2 of the XFL season. They have looked below average, and Cardale Jones has looked very, very, very human, throwing another interception or 2, just 1 interception against the Vipers. So where do we start? I think we got to highlight the ground game. And, well, no, let's start with this. Let's start with what an amazing difference it made that there was no pressure for Taylor Cornelius to play well. I mean, there's always pressure to play well, but play well enough to not have someone being subbed in for you and messing with your rhythm. And, I think Q got a tough break. We talked about it a little bit last episode, and he made decisions that he had to make, and he was inactive for the game, and as of right now he's actually back on the team, and looks like we're going to try and seek a trade out of Tampa for him. But I kind of liked it. I mean, and this is one of the hot takes, but a little bit of a spoiler alert, kind of showed that A, we can get the job done without him, and B, that you got to be a team player. And I think that was highlighted by Aaron Murray's interview at halftime, just really supporting Taylor. And whether it's all smoke and mirrors, it's smoke and mirrors, and he's really resentful. But I don't know. I didn't really get that tone from Aaron Murray. But ground game, absolute domination on both sides, all 3 facets of all 3 sides of the ball, I guess. Offense, defense, special teams. Almost 500 yards of offense, and keep in mind that the Vipers were ahead for most, if not all, this game. Like, there was pedal to the metal, and it just absolutely grinding this out. 29 first downs for the Vipers to 6 for the Defenders. In fact, offensive, defensive plays, Vipers had 80 offensive plays to DC's 39. I mean, doubled them up on plays. Just an incredible showing. 477 total yards of offense versus the Defenders' 107. 46 on the ground for DC versus 266 on the ground for the Vipers. And then on the air, 211 for Cornelius, minus a sack or 2. And 61 for Cardale Jones. It was a tough night to be a Defenders quarterback, a Defenders offensive player, and a Defenders pass or a rush defender, as both Jacques Patrick and De'Veon Smith playing phenomenal games, both over 100 yards. De'Veon Smith leading the way with 122, and then Jacques Patrick with 108. Both of them averaging exactly 5.1 yards a carry. Even Cornelius getting into the act. He had a long run for a conversion. 4 attempts for 36 for Cornelius. So looking at our 80 plays, more than half were rushing, and that was one of the key of the games. We had to control the clock and make sure that we did not give that potentially potent offense a chance to work. We did that, and, well, it also helps when that potent offense shows that they're maybe not so potent. Cardale Jones really struggling. I loved the pressure. I think Glanville was able to, Jerry Glanville was able to better time his blitzes, though he claims he was blitzing almost every play, and it certainly seemed like that, but these blitzes were finally hitting home, I guess. They're finally getting in the quarterback's face, and maybe we just switched up the blitz packages for them to be more effective. And so I think that made a huge difference, and it helped that they couldn't run the ball. I mean, Pumphrey had a couple. I mean, almost half of his yardage came on one run. So 7 for 34, and then Brissett, who was a big star a week or two ago, 6 for 12. So again, controlling the ground game, putting pressure on Cardale Jones. Look at our defensive statistics. I mean, you had another interception by McFadden. And then, 4 quarterback hits, 2 sacks, and then we were in the backfield pretty much all game with pressure. 4 pass defended. Again, 22 attempts and only 9 hit the mark. So lots of inaccuracy for Cardale Jones after really having a great opening 2 weeks. So it's kind of a little disappointing if you're a DC fan. Hopefully they bounce back, fix whatever's going on. Their offensive play calling was definitely questionable at best. So I don't know what was going on with DC, but we'll take it. We needed the win. Let's get the victory horns going. Yeah. And in the great words of the coach of LA, this is the best sound clip. That's right, Vipers fans. You wanted to win. They're going to give it to you right now. Let's play it again. Of course, that was Winston Moss when Josh Johnson really wanted to go for 4th down. You caught that on the camera there. So, big boom shakalaka also for the Vipers. Heck of a week. Number 1 rushing attack. And I think our running backs are now in the lead. They're probably like 1-3. Let me verify that. The XFL has been getting better at updating their stats, so that's always exciting. Yeah, 1-3. That's what I thought. Devion Smith almost 300 yards rushing, and Jacques Patrick right behind him at 231. Number 5 in the whole league, by the way. Jordan Tamu 186. So again, Tampa Bay fortunate to have such great, 2 great running backs. Big bad Dan Williams holding it strong at 252, number 4 in the league in receiving yards. And then picks, Tavares McFadden making the top 5 with 2 picks. And this is what I'm talking about here, sacks. The Guardians have 3 of the top 5. We have Kayvon Walker with 2, Gerald Owens with 2, Kayvon Walker 2.5, Gerald Owens with 2, and then Wes Sutton with another 2. So getting 6.5 sacks just from 3 individuals. So it's been a great showing on offense for the Vipers. And, we didn't talk about Taylor Cornelius. I don't want to let that slide because I know the focus was on the run game and how effective that was. Taylor, I think, was he in 70% completion? I want to say, yeah, 77% completion, 24 for 31, had a bomb for 38, just 1 touchdown. But that's all he needed. We just need someone not to throw 3 interceptions a game. That's all we need. Be efficient. 211 yards in the air, only 1 pick. I will take that all day. And then add on top of that 36 yards rushing for a 6'7", 6'6", kind of a slow poke. We will take that all day. So that's it for our recap. Let's get through good, bad, and ugly. Man, I did terrible at switching the logos here. Yeah, there's your Defenders and Vipers logos. We were doing our recap. And there it is. Good, bad, and ugly. Let's switch over to the full screen for our viewers. We got good, bad, and ugly. I mean, really not much bad to talk about. In the good category, of course, Taylor Cornelius looked great, looked composed, looked like a professional quarterback. He handled the interviews on well. He took a big pop as well. Did he rush in a touchdown? I think he ran one in too. So don't want to discredit him there. He ran in a touchdown, took a huge pop in the shoulder. He looked to be in discomfort for a little bit, but bounced right back in, finished the game. Taylor Cornelius, I would say you're probably the number 3 star, unfortunately, for the game since you had Devion Smith and Jacques Patrick having such great games. Of course, it seemed like Jacques Patrick's dad had passed the prior week, so condolences out to the Patrick family, and I'm sure your dad's smiling from the sky with the great game that you had. Again, we mentioned it briefly, but just absolute domination in all phases. We saw pressure on the quarterback. We were pass protecting. I think Taylor only got sacked. Didn't even get sacked. No sacks given up, guys. Awesome. Great job by the offensive line against a DC Defenders team that was known to put some pressure on teams early on in the season. And then, of course, just a great vibe overall. It was great to see everyone having fun, having that Bud Light Seltzer celebration for the big W. Let's get another horn in there. They look so great, and DC's not a bad team. So I think this was a good litmus test. The ultimate one's coming in 2 weeks against the Battlehawks, but again, Aaron Murray was just such a clutch pro interview at halftime, complimentary of Taylor, supporting Taylor despite looking fairly healthy enough to play. And I'm hoping this is the way we roll in the future. So bad in quotes, right? What can be improved? I think we could still take fewer penalties. Are we up at 50? We're at 50 penalty yards still. No, 60. So my guess is 6-ish penalties for 60. Somewhere around in that vicinity. Maybe a few more penalties than that, but still playing a little sloppy. Could take fewer penalties. I think we just need to take a look at where the penalties are happening. Let's take a look. Third down efficiency was a little bit below our average. We were in the 50s, down to 30%, but then again, didn't really affect us too much. We either kicked the field goal or punted away and gave DC terrible field position where they were barely able to convert any first downs. 6 total for the whole game. So I think ugly. I don't know if we like the way we handled if I like the way we handled the Flower situation, but I think at the end of the day, it's the way it had to happen. I know it just looked bad from the onset, right? It looked like we weren't giving him a chance. And I don't know. Maybe Trestman just didn't have the fortitude to stand up to what seemed to be a pretty raucous crowd demanding Q, and him leaving the team with minimal playtime in the second half. I mean, of the previous game. So I don't know. That's so tricky when hats off to Q. I mean, I know he wants to make it as a professional athlete, as a quarterback, but we talked about it in episode 9. When he was drafted as a skill player, and the caveat was quarterback/running back. That's how he was listed on the depth chart. That's what he was, and we gave him a chance. And just it takes a special coach, and we've had our differences with Trestman. It just takes a special coach with the right system to figure out how to do 2 quarterbacks. I just don't think we have the offense for it. We are finally able to protect Taylor. We're finally able to throw the ball down the field and just run down the throats of everyone. And I think that's just the team we have. That's a team that we're built for. That's the game plan that we're built for. And we just got to keep doing that. Last ugly, more so on the other side of the ball, Cardale having a little bit of attitude, a little bit of Matt McGloin syndrome. Some of the hot mics catching some ugliness, talking about some of his teammates needing to be benched when it looked like that maybe he should be benched, and he eventually was, I guess. And then DC, I think Pep, really disappointed the team. I think the offensive play calling wasn't there. Maybe it was the Vipers defense feeling empowered and really played well enough to make that big of a difference. But DC really looked like Tampa the first two games. I mean, that's really how bad they looked. Couldn't get good quarterback play to save their life, and the offensive game plan just didn't look like it was flowing. It didn't look like it was effective. So a little bit back of the drawing board for DC. I get us to hot takes. We've got a couple hot takes for you here at the Viper's Nest just to close out our show. I'm still working the new kinks here with the graphics. So there's hot takes. There you are. Let's go back to the full screen for hot takes. Any given Saturday/Sunday part 2. We kind of saw that with the Guardians coming out on top. Dragons actually covering the spread against the Battlehawks, and a tight one in the Texas Throwdown. So I'm liking that we're working towards parity here. It's been fun football to watch, and I think at the end of the day, kind of getting to the late winter, early spring doldrums, just want to be entertained sometimes, and I've loved it. I've made it must-watch TV most Saturdays and Sundays. Of course, time for chores and housework and whatnot, independent of that. But been able to sit down and watch most of these games. I mean, they've been fun. It's good football. It's like watching. It's almost kind of like watching a little bit of college, to be honest. If you got players that are literally doing it for the love of football, not being paid in the millions, and just trying to earn their keep, trying to earn a spot in the NFL, or if the XFL funding strategy changes in the next few years to allow for bigger contracts, maybe playing into a bigger contract, depending on what the revenue model looks like for the XFL. So really loved it. Love BJ Daniels getting his shot. If we're cheering for USF Bulls, maybe that's where we need to start. There with BJ Daniels, being pumped for him in Seattle and looking like he's going to be able to maybe right the ship there. Hot take number 2. Love the Texas Throwdown. Great marketing campaign and hashtags and whatnot behind that. But what I really loved was the fact that there was a bigger crowd at Globe Life Park than there was for the opener. I think that spells great news for sustainability and popularity of the sport and of the league. So again, really excited to hear that. Attendance down for the Tampa game, going down from 18,000 to about 12,500. I think part of that is the loss of Q, and part of that is, it's just, you're on 3. It's tough to get pumped for a game, right? And a little bit of losing football fatigue in Tampa over the last few years. I expect there to be a big showing for the Battlehawks game. I'm really excited to be part of that. Hopefully, be there supporting the Vipers, and we'll talk about that more as we get closer to that game where I'll be sitting and see if you can find the sports heap. Imma will be there alongside me, so we'll finally get some live Vipers action. So yeah, excited. It's been great. I think we're gonna make it more than 8 weeks, so that's good, right? Instead of the AAF, who folded pretty quickly, just crowds went down very quickly. Here's my hot take. Here's the one. Hot take number 3. I think the Vipers are going to make the East Division Finals. I'm saying it now. You heard it here first. Or maybe not first. Maybe we all felt that way at the beginning of the season and quickly changed our minds after games 1, 2, and 3. But I think we have it in us to make a run. I think we beat LA next week. And then the big linchpin in this, the big conditional, gotta beat the Battlehawks at home to get us back to 3-3. Anyone's season after that. Got another big one in the Battle Dome towards the end of the season. The redemption game against the Guardians to close it out. Well within possibility that we can finish 7-3, be playing the Battlehawks in the Battle Dome for the Eastern Division Championship. That's my take. That's my call. Could be here having a different conversation next week after LA finds a way to beat us, but this is end of week 4. I'm feeling us making the Eastern Division Finals, the East Division Finals, and that's my take, and I'm sticking to it, all right? I'm sticking to it. Tressman leads the Vipers on a 7-game winning streak to make the playoffs. I'm telling you. All right, as we close out the show, the inaugural Sports Heap Vipers Nest Power Rankings. We got them here for you. And despite our record, I think no home cooking. I try to do this as partial or impartial as possible. No home cooking on this one, all right? Despite a 1-3 team being in the top 4. So here we have it on this big screen for you. And if you're listening along at home, I'll read that out to you. And there it is. Sports Heap Power Rankings will start at 8. And I'm going to go with Seattle Dragons right now at number 8. I need to see a little bit more from BJ Daniels and what that looks like long term before we decide to move them up. But right now, that passing game, that offense is anemic. Defense has been keeping them in games, but just can't hold on. It's a long season for the Dragons. They have great fans, but I think it's going to be a tough one for the Dragons. And I think they end up in the basement at the end of the season. Number 7, again, until we see more from Luis Perez. A big win helped them at 2-2 now. I'm moving them up to 7 over the Dragons. And I think Week 5 is going to really tell the tale of the tape, if you will, on if they deserve to be ranked higher. Because if DC's in free fall mode, DC could be right down there competing with Seattle for a strong case for the 8 seed. So we'll have to see who everyone plays next week in episode 11 when we do the preview. I think LA is got DC at 6. Kind of tumbling down the rankings. We had probably as high as 2, right? With everyone else's rankings after week 1 and week 2. I think the Battlehawks are firmly entrenched up there. Number 5. Again, despite records, putting LA at number 5. Kind of a shaky loss this past week. Unexpected loss against the Guardians. And really, if you're able to get in their face and control Josh Johnson, again, he threw over 300 yards and it was a close game, but that was a game that LA should have absolutely run over the Guardians, and that defense really kept them in the game. So if you have a strong defense, you have a chance against LA. Putting our Tampa Bay Vipers at number 4 after that strong performance, I really think they're starting to get everything moving in the right direction. I think Taylor Cornelius could be the solution at quarterback. And now if the distraction of is Q going in, is Q not going in, is Q happy, is Q leaving the team, is he not leaving the team? With all that out the window now, I think kind of puts Tampa in a prime spot to make a run for that second playoff spot. 3rd right now, and this is pending performance, how the backup quarterback's going to play the next 2 weeks. I think a little bit of an asterisk here if Landry Jones is able to come back. Hopefully it's not too little too late. Again, you're dealing with a pretty weak Seattle team. So really it's a big game for LA next week against the Vipers to really try and get a game or 2 on the Renegades, who probably may struggle the next 2 weeks without Landry Jones, unless Cameron Artis-Payne puts the team on his back and carries them to victory. Renegades at 3 for me. I think right now Battlehawks you could make an argument for them being number 1. I think Houston's played not excellent football the last 2 weeks. They've actually played only pretty good football the last 2 weeks, but got to unseed the champs. You got to be better than the champs. They've lost to them already this year. So Houston is at number 1 until they're dethroned by someone else. I think Battlehawks are a strong 2. I think the gap between Houston and you basically have Houston, the Battlehawks, and the rest of the 6 teams basically kind of interchangeable there. I think Seattle and New York are firmly in the bottom half of those 8, but I mean, I can see the Vipers ranging anywhere. You could argue the Vipers are the third best team in the league, especially now with Landry Jones' injury and the uncertainty with that. So those are our power rankings. You got Houston, the Battlehawks, Renegades, Vipers, Wildcats, Defenders, Guardians, and Dragons in your top 8. That was a great episode. I enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed that as well. Again, don't forget, give us a shout out on Twitter. Got to get my Twitter handle. That's what I forgot to put on here. We'll get that going for episode 11. My Twitter handle, of course, at Moose_TSH. Give us a follow on Twitter. Interact with me. I'm always on there active. Feel free to DM me and ask any questions or anything you want to see on the show. Of course, you can always listen to us on our podcast while you're riding around the car, taking a shower, moving into your girlfriend's place, so on and so forth. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio. And, of course, you can always watch our pre-recorded or live shows. We'll do a live show when Emrod is back, and we'll start scheduling those so you know when they're at. On YouTube at our channel, The Sports Heap. You'll see the logo here to my right. The Sports Heap, that is our YouTube channel where you can find all our videos. That has been it for us tonight. Hope you had a great time listening to the Week 4 recap. We'll see you probably Thursday night or Friday night. Maybe early Saturday morning for episode 11. Got some visit coming into town, so I'm going to try and work on this episode later this week and get it ready and queued up so we can get you previewed for week number 5. Hope you have a great night. We will see you in a few days for week 5 of the XFL. Have a great night. Go Vipers.